room at this at the lodge.
I don't remember that one.
Yeah.
Well, do you remember there was a little stained glass tree of life that was in the foyer? That's now in the little back chapel.
Yes, that's beautiful. Somebody made that. Not Steve, but somebody. That was beautiful. But this was this was before that, I think. This was at Hollywood.
Oh. You used to go to the Hollywood?
In East Hollywood, yeah.
Oh, wow.
Over by the Goodwill. Where I get a lot of nice clothes.
Oh, cool.
Well, I guess we could proceed. I did manage to get live on YouTube. It fought me tooth and nail, but what do you all think? Any last minute greetings and hellos, and otherwise I will.
Hey everybody. Michael, nice to see you again. I hope your workload has lessened.
Yeah, I didn't join you last week because it was my birthday, but
yeah.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. I know it would have been great, but I actually had another meeting that I wanted to go to, but I'm glad to be back again. I'm sorry I missed most. How what major arcana are we on now?
We're doing 5 and 6, or is it 6 and 7? Lovers, and the next one.
Chariot. Yeah.
Oops. Somebody just dropped out. Okay, so let's see what happened here. Harold Magnus.
I'm counting 8 plus maybe your off-screen master camera there.
Yeah, the program host PC, Throw Display PC, it's called. That's where the program lives, and I use my iPad. Is my Brian C. co-host. So, I guess. Hey,
Chariot. Hi. Hello. Hi, Christina. Hi, Lynn. Hi, Lana. Hi, Ala. Sorry, Brian. I'm talking over you. It's my bad habit.
No problem. I'm just about to hit the master mute, and then nobody will be talking over anybody. And start the program. So I shall do that now. All right. So in just a moment, we shall have Dr. Heller on the 6th Arcanum, the Lovers.
We now extend ourselves from our point of view in the leftward direction, which is really to the right-hand pillar of the tree, and we reach up to the third of the supernals to Bina. So this is from Tiferet to Bina, from the messianic central sun in Tiferet, which might be envisioned as the divine child. In fact, one of its magical images is the divine child to the divine mother above. And attributed to this is the 6th arcanum called the Lovers. The letter, the Hebrew letter is Zain, which means a sword or a weapon. The astrological attribution is Gemini. So what are we doing here again? We are connecting Tiferet.
Sorry, folks, I messed it up here. I will start again and do the proper share this time. Okay, that's the proper share. Okay, everybody, this is then Dr. Heller on the Lovers.
We now extend ourselves from our point of view in the leftward direction, which is really to the right-hand pillar of the tree, and we reach up to the third of the supernals to Bina. So this is from Tiferet to Bina, from the messianic central sun in Tiferet, which might be envisioned as the divine child. In fact, one of its magical images is the divine child to the divine mother above. And attributed to this is the sixth arcanum called the Lovers. The letter, the Hebrew letter is Zain, which means a sword or a weapon. The astrological attribution is Gemini. So what are we doing here again? We are connecting Tiferet, the most balanced position in the tree of life, with the apex of what is called the right-hand pillar, because from the position of the tree that is the right-hand pillar, Bina, the supernal mother, to which Saturn is attributed, and which is, well, it has, let's say, dark, restrictive, and somewhat difficult characteristics. So we are connecting balance, we are moving from balance to the top of the dark and somewhat negative pillar. So when we are envisioning this path, let's say on the downward path of manifestation coming from the top of the tree downward, then this path denotes primarily, in my estimation at least, choice. On the upward path, it is not so much a matter of choice as it is maintaining balance through balanced emotion and insightfully inspired affection. The supernal mother, Bina, would overwhelm us when we move up there if we do not remain greatly balanced. And therefore one needs to maintain the inspiring influence of Tiferet when faced with this sort of very, very high, very spiritually infused kind of anima. And for this reason we have a curious imagery on the card of the Lovers. At least on the weight deck, which is the one we have here, we have a man and a woman, above them an angel, who is usually, I think, regarded the angel Gabriel, although Gabriel is further down. I think this one is probably more likely to be Raphael, the healing angel, archangel. And the masculine and the feminine figure are endowed with various other characteristics of polarity. The man stands in front of a tree, and the tree has flames shooting out of the branches, while the woman stands in front of a tree that has fruit, and that is sort of like the tree in paradise. In fact, there is a snake there as well. So they are sort of the burning one and the growing one, Logos and Eros, the flame of the mind and the nourishing and fruit-producing power of feeling. So it is great opposites in the human psyche, in the human soul. And what does the angel do? He hovers above and has his hands extended over each and sort of blesses them and reconciles them, unites them. The woman looks up to the angel. Her head is turned upwards. The man, in turn, is looking at the woman. Now, we have now available to us the alternative scriptures of the Gnostics that are in the Nag Hammadi collection, which indicate that Eve receives her inspiration not from the snake, but from on high, from Sophia, from the angelic nature. And then Adam, in turn, is taught by her. So the feminine here has the intuition, the intuitive contact with the higher, and the man listens to her. So Eve is a kind of a seeress. She is a wise woman. She is a prophetess. And Adam is instructed by her. And that symbolism is present in the Vedic. It's obviously a Kabbalistic tradition, which is Gnostic in nature. And also, if you want to draw a triangle with its point, with its apex upward, then the angel is at the top of the triangle, and the base is a masculine and the feminine. So we have a unification of the opposites. Now the choice becomes very portentous, because we are on our way up, we are on our way home. And now the choice is not so much, should I go this way or should I go that way? Should I cultivate the flame of the mind and become an intellectual, or should I, on the other hand, cultivate the emotional and the physical on the other hand and do something else, whatever the case may be? The either-or choice is on the way down on the tree of life when we are going into manifestation. The choice of how to reunite the opposites, how to make them one, is on the way up. So it's this kind of spiritual experience that we are cultivating here and experiencing here, to unite our consciousness with the transcendental, with the greater. That's also important to remember, that there are really, one way of looking at this is, which I think is fairly helpful, is that there are two tasks of reunification. There is a horizontal one, you might say, and a vertical one. And the horizontal one are the right and the left, and the inner and the outer, and the above and the below, and things like that, the opposites that occur in our life. And then the vertical one is myself with the divine self, ultimately union with God.
Well, hello, and there is nothing like listening to Dr. Heller to give you some perspective and instruction on these cards. I have not considered them in this way before, and it's extremely useful. It really enhances my understanding of the connection of Kabbalah to these cards. In terms of divination, I think that I stick more with that idea of the downward in terms of my own interpretations of choice. But so many people come looking for relationship readings that this one gets very muddied with me, because it's hard for me to tell, are we looking at a fork in the road, or like all of a sudden this wonderful lover appearing, and it's named in such a way that it pushes a lot of the buttons that people who want a reading have, and a lot of the insecurities and things. So I look forward to hearing other people's ways that they work with this card. I'll say that at this point of my, whatever, as if this were to come up as the summary card in a reading, I think that I would say, well, you are really looking at a choice. You're looking at something that offers you the opportunity to seek a direction, and the direction needs to be virtuous, and it looks like it is. There's blessing over it. If this were, so we would probably be looking at some sort of a relationship situation or some sort of a choice situation, like at work, where you had maybe you could go in this development direction or that development direction, or this contract or that contract. And so it would indicate that, but it wouldn't necessarily resolve it. So I look forward to hearing other people's thoughts, except that if this were marking one of the choices, then this one might be the better move because it has the blessing on it. If this were in the advice against position, then I would say it's really not a good idea to join together with anyone at this point. If you are thinking of getting together as an equal with this person, that may not be the right kind of status match for you. Or this choice direction is going to take you in a way that you don't want to go. It might be like a reversal on this. I'm reminded, we talked about this last time or the time before, is that those card positions, and we have them coming up again today, both of them today, have this figure above and a dual figure below, like we had in the Hierophant with the Pope above and the acolytes below. And so the same kind of structure. So there's that image parallel there. So that's, if it were against, then watch out for this kind of choice that you're considering. This may not be the right direction for you. Even though it seems like it's great and blessed and wonderful, it's not the thing to do right now. If it were in the recommendation, then maybe you really should consider this partnership. Maybe this is something where you need to come out of yourself and join together with another person. This partnership might be really helpful for your own development. This road that you're considering is something that will aid your growth. Something along those lines is what I would suggest. All right, so who wants to go next? Wave your little hand. Magnus, I see that you might be having some things to say because you're stopping yourself from saying them right now. So maybe I'll go to you.
Thank you, Alison. I have, this card has, from the beginning, I read it when I was not so used to readings. I read it as a relationship, and it would be lucky relationship, but then also I had a teacher that did a spiritual reading for me, and this card came up at the end of that. And he explained it that this is the divine influence in the choices. You have to, you can stay in your calmness because the choice will be chosen. You don't have to struggle for the choice, and you should also accept the choice. So I started to read it that way more and more. And coming up in the not the against position, I would say that you shouldn't wait for a divine inspiration. You shouldn't think there is something higher that will help you here, because there isn't, or you can't hear it. And in that way, you should go for it in your own way. If it is in the other position, I would say it's calm. You are led to the right choice. And it's also, as we have been talking about, it's a man and a woman. It's the anima and the animus energies that is married with each other. And also, I see, as you did, Alison, the correspondence to other card. I also see a correspondence that is interesting from this card to the devil card.
Yeah, that's the other one, right?
Yes, and also the 5 and the 6 for the 15. The 1 and the 5, sorry, is 6. So they also connect together, and also it's a connection from the magician, because it's Mercury and this is the Gemini. So there is also a connection there. And I think that has something to do also with this is the positive result of the journey for the magician, to listen for the higher divination, the divine forces. Because when we looked at the magician, we said he is not ready to do his magic if he is not inside himself. And this is the way to it, I think. And looking at the card more, it is interesting. The sun there is the Tiferet Sephira, I believe. And also there is a sexual thing here, because it looks like a clitoris in the between them there. It's the mountain there could be that. So it's a lot of symbology in this card. And with that, I think I pass to Alla.
Thank you, Magnus. I really don't have much to add besides, like, everybody was talking about the choice. And I think that this is more like a free choice that was given to humanity by God. We all have free choice to choose something. And for me, I see it's like it was already mentioned, that it's spiritual. It's the choice. It's not as much as relationship between a couple as a relationship between a person and God. So that's my take on looking closely on this card. And I was interested in looking at the fires that on the tree behind a man. There are 12 of them, and there are 4 apples behind Eve. So if somebody has anything to add to this, I would be curious to hear. Thank you. Christina, you next.
Whenever I get this card in spreads, it's usually what comes out is mutual attraction, you know, in addition to what's been said. There is a mutual attraction, and sometimes right now that stands out even more. It could be a relationship, whether within yourself or with the person you're inquiring about. That it could be a past life relationship that you're either resolving in this life or you're, you know, continuing in this life. And then also the sexuality also comes up, that the choice is between the profane sexuality or the spiritual sexuality. And there's a discrimination that needs to be done with it. So that's what pops up with me on this. Alice, do you want to go next?
I think that I've said what I need to.
No, not.
How about Jeriel?
Sorry.
Yeah, this is a really very interesting card. And from the reading that I've been doing, this card has more variation and has morphed more different times through the various decks. There have been any number of variations. There have been it started out with actually 2 men, and then there was also, there's always been this triangle though, and one of the cards actually has a man standing between 2 women. One of them kind of dark complected and ugly, and the other one light complected and beautiful. And over them was a Cupid aiming his arrow at the man. So I think that we have pretty well assayed the main thing here, which is choice. To answer the earlier question, I think that the 12 is a relationship to all of the 12 things that we have, the 12 signs of the zodiac, the 12 months of the year. There are many 12s. I think it's also interesting that the angel, who I think is Gabriel, has hair that also looks like flames. And the flames, of course, is the intellect. And I think we have here again a choice between what we think and how we feel. And how we feel is related very much to the Garden of Eden, which is clearly the reference with the tree next to Eve, and with the snake there. I think Dr. Heller made a good point in attaching significance to the fact that Eve isn't looking at the snake; she's looking up at the angel, and that maybe her guidance. And he said that was from a Gnostic tradition, and the Gnostic tradition is not nearly so shall I say sexist as more modern kind of things. the mountain there also very, very pronounced and between them, and they're also divided by clouds. So when we're making a decision, it's not always very clear what that decision should be. Again, should we follow our emotions and go for what we like, what we're attracted to? Clearly, the male is reacting to the thing that males do. They're very visual oriented, and he's got behind him, however, the flames of his intelligence. The idea that the name of this card or the name of the letter has to do with sword, and we get back to the thing about the swords being the symbol of, or the suit for the intellect in our making. So I would say that this is saying to be careful about your decisions. I think it is very much in terms of divination, the thing of a choice. And I think that we'll see when we move on to card 7, where we've made the choice and we're now in our chariot and we're going forward with whatever choice we've made. I think that sun is one of the most dramatic references to one of the Sephiroth, as Magnus pointed out. It's virtually a picture of the Sephiroth, and a lot of the depictions of that Sephiroth on the tree actually have radiations coming out of it, like we're seeing here. So who hasn't spoken yet? Elizabeth, you want to join in here? I see you joined us.
Hi.
I'm sorry.
When I always thought the Lovers was a bit of a transverse of the Devil card, and some relationships can be great lessons that kind of keep us chained to one another, to learn some kind of great lesson from this person. And then also the intermingling of love and romance and intimacy, and being chained to one specific kind of way of the way that it will go is going to determine the relationship and how you're linked together, and the manner and how you're connected and what you can learn from each other. So the relationship is always a deeply teaching sort of relationship when this card comes up. That's pretty much all I have for that today.
Lana?
Hi. Well, the way I look at this card, number one, that the main image that comes to me, it's a duality of our, mind, and how do we approach knowledge, and there are two extremes here. One is through rationale, and another one through experience. And this is something that we've been as a humanity struggling for thousands of years. But the key is to maintain a balance. but there be times where your approach is going to be very rational, and there are going to be other times where you would go purely from the intuition. And I think in the work that I do, I constantly struggle with that. Which one do I choose? What the intuition is telling me, or what the rationale is telling me. And so it's kind of a difficult card to interpret. I would say there's a contrast from this card, and also Two of Hearts, I believe, where we have two lovers, and that card seems to be more of a relationship, from two people, and healing a relationship. And this one is basically a relationship between you and your mind. And perhaps that's all I want to say here. Thank you. And I will pass this to Michael.
I think the choice aspect is probably the biggest part of this card. And with that, the number 6 being what it is, with 6, we have a cube, if we want to take a cube, and then we have 6 sides of the cube. So the choices that we make in life are representative of our reality, and also kind of mirrors the Hermetic principle number 6, which is cause and effect. And I think the Lovers kind of initiates or kind of shows that that choice. We, whatever decision we make, either the bad or the good, depending on what we do, is going to affect our reality and our real life. And it's not just that we, if we get this card, maybe clearly we have a choice. Sometimes choices are forced on us, and it can be a kind of a point of creation. And if we kind of look at this card, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of symbols of creation, or there's a lot of yonic symbolism in how the people are standing, and even the mountain is kind of incredibly tall in the background, is kind of representative of that creation, that moment where we make that choice and what that choice leads to us. Jeriel mentioned in a couple of the cards, the angel in the middle was replaced by a Cupid-like figure with kind of an arrow pointing downward. And you have like a young man. I'm specifically talking about the Knapp Hall card, but I think in that is, with this card, is we have to be warned not to be indecisive, and not, we do have to make a choice. It might not, we have to make an informed choice, but we don't need to make a choice that takes us forever, because the choice is going to be made for us. That's all I had to add.
All right. Well, when doing a reading for somebody, there are a few cards that'll get a reader into more trouble than the Lover's card. Because, oh my God, here I am maybe messing with somebody's love life, or their romantic attractions, or, well, you just start, your eyes start scurrying all around the reading, looking for clues as to whether this might be about that, or whether it's been about all the lovely esoteric things that others have been talking about. But I know that this card certainly makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up when it comes up in a reading. So it's a pretty dynamic thing to see, just from that point of view. But yeah, that's why I'm very glad to have this austere and auspicious, I don't know, auspicious is a better word, group to give some other divinatory reflections, because again, I just have to go running elsewhere around the tarot spread, looking for what this card might be meaning, because I mean we're all rather reductionistic human beings, and we'll pull this down from the heavens right down to earth, where I'm just about to meet a new lover, or that's what's on my I have a date this Saturday. Well, no, I don't. And so it's a pretty dynamic. So with that, I guess we'll just knock it around the room here and see what we get.
I wanted to underline something that Lana said, which was about balance. That this is yet another card which is calling on us to look for a balance or an equilibrium, and that I think is a very important element of this, and in decision making. And I also wanted to share that the esoteric titles of this card are The Children of the Voice and The Oracle of the Mighty Gods. So I guess those are the children below, and the archangel there is the oracle, perhaps.
Children of the Voice, that's interesting. I wonder if that means that they're these humans are hearing a voice, an inner voice from above, from the spirit world.
And Alla, you wanted to know more about the apples and the burning bush there.
Yeah.
It's a lot of it written in the Kabbalistic Tarot by Robert Wang that Yeriel and I like very much. He writes a lot of it, but basically what he writes is the apples is the four elements of the four world, the olams in the Kabbalistic world, and the flames are the 12 zodiacal signs, and that you have to pass through each of the 12 zodiacal signs in each of the olams, in each of the worlds. But it's deeper written in the book.
Thank you, Magnus.
Yes, you're
Thanks.
welcome.
Another aspect of this that I believe I read in the Katz and Goodwin Secrets of the Waite Tarot book, but maybe not, is that this is also the idea the male is representing the conscious mind, the female is representing the unconscious mind, and so the conscious mind needs to take its direction from the unconscious, which needs to be pointed upward or pointed towards the angelic versus the devil kind of direction. So that's something that came to mind also.
It's also interesting to look at the tree and looking at the emperor path that we discussed the last time, but that's because that is the balancing path in a way, and to this path. And you have to meditate on that, I think, because it's the emperor and the lovers. It's a sort of inner path there, balancing each other in some way, with the high priestess in between.
I think it's, I'm looking at this book, Ziegler, Tarot Mirror of the Soul, and the one keyword that I really like, it says becoming conscious through relationship. And how often do we learn things about ourselves through the relationship, and until, we are with that person, that triggers certain things in us, we don't even know what are we capable of.
Yes, in either direction.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
And if you put this card right next to the devil card, and of course we've said before that they're related by their numerology. The 15 reduces to 6, but it's actually almost the identical card with a devil figure rather than an angel, and showing the couple actually chained to a block that the devil is sitting on, and the couple have tails, and the what's represented by the tree is fruit at the end of the tail, from the Eve figure in the devil card, and flame from the tail of the of the male image. So and we'll get into it more when we get to the devil. But if I think maybe the devil card is like the inverted lover card, where you've made a wrong decision. And the devil card says if you make a wrong decision, you may end up being chained to it. But I think that this card is definitely open to just so many kind of things. It shows what a conundrum it is to make wise decisions.
Jerry, it's interesting, numerology, the devil is 15.
Yes.
And if you add those, numerology is 6.
Right.
And this one is 6. They're both 6, in number.
Well, so I would say that maybe you can say that the consequences of your decision, will go into the next level in the devil card. It might go in that direction, or
chain to your reality.
Change to your reality.
Right.
6 being the cube.
Right.
Whatever decision that you end up making, that becomes your reality. That becomes
Until that lightning strike comes and knocks the crown off that reality. Right?
yeah.
Well, we'll see that when we get to the next card, Chariot, which is 7, and then the card numerically that relates to that is 16, which reduces to 7 in the same way Christina was just describing. And it has that lightning strike. It's the tower.
I'm coming to appreciate numerology more.
Well, it is one of the things that goes through the through the deck and makes these connections between the cards. It's also worth noting that the path that we're looking at there between Bina and Tippereth is one of only 2 paths that actually cross the abyss. The other being the path between Tippereth and Chokmah, which I noticed last week when we heard something that we listened to. Maybe it was Dr. Heller was pronouncing that Chokmah, and so maybe it has a silent C the same way that Hanukkah does.
I've always heard it said Chokmah.
That's it.
But I would say throughout the world there must be dozens of ways that it's pronounced.
And they're all
That's interesting.
Hebrew.
Interesting. In there is a word in Yiddish, "chokhmah," but it means something else. It means some kind of like a wise tale. I'm gonna give you this wise tale.
And then that parallel you were mentioning, Gerald, is the one that Magnus was mentioning earlier, that connection with the emperor, that paired dynamic between the two pillars. So this is very cool. I appreciated, Jeriel, that idea. I've never looked before at the clouds between them. And so the angel is appearing out of the clouds, but the clouds are also between the two figures. And so clouding that pathway between them and that decision-making process, I think that's quite insightful. Do we notice the flames on the head of the angel? I find those they're kind of the same. The crown of, is it this one? There's another crown of flame. And maybe it's the King of Wands. And now I have to go look for that. Anyway, later on we'll talk about that.
Do you guys mind if we could just bring the Two of Hearts for a moment? Because there are also, two people there. And it's just so different,
We're gonna see a really strong parallel in the Chariot card to the Two of Cups. In fact, it's often referred to as the higher aspect of the Two of Cups, and it relates particularly to that symbol that's on the front of the Chariot. But we should put that off till we move on to that card.
Okay.
Magnus referred a minute ago to my fascination with Robert Wang's book, and I want to read you something out of that. This just a short paragraph. It said, one would expect explanations of the cards by weight and case to be similar, even despite Waite's apparent caution about what he put into print. Such similarities, however, are few, and where Case considered this card one of dualities, unified by the spiritual self, Waite merely emphasizes its relationship to the Garden of Eden. He referred to Adam and Eve and to the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but made no mention of spiritual alchemy in this card, which he called, quote, love before it is contaminated by gross material desire. Adding that, quote, in a very high sense, the card is a mystery of the covenant and the Sabbath. One might well suggest that such comments, drawn from his pictorial key to the tarot, are so cryptic as to be almost useless to the serious student. The intention here is not to deprecate Waite, who must be respected for maintaining his oaths of secrecy, but to point out the extent to which there are two explanations to every card, an exoteric and an esoteric. In all versions of this key, no matter how it may be described or how different the design, the esoteric meaning is the same. They all mean the union of manifest opposites under the divine love of the supernals through Bina. It is, as Waite stresses, the Garden of Eden, but is the garden from which the soul itself is expelled in manifestation and to which it may return. The same message is in Crowley's card, which shows the theme of union as an alchemical marriage of the component parts of the seeker. The Golden Dawn also represents this spiritual union, but with an important difference. The seeker works actively for this to come about. The higher self descends to release the personality from bondage, recalling the idea encountered with the hanged man that while the personality believes itself to be the pursuer, it is actually the pursued.
Ha! Sorry.
Well, are we wrapping it up? Gonna clear the stage and move to the Chariot yet, or any closing thoughts, Michael?
Yeah, I had one other thing that I wanted to mention. I know that Heller said it might have been Gabriel, and then he said, I think it's more like Raphael. Magnus, thank you for showing the Crowley card. But
no, it's not the Crowley. It's the case card.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
That that Ariel was reading out for a minute ago. It's almost similar, but it's not exactly similar.
I like the Raphael impression more than the Gabriel. The crown, which does kind of look like flames, also looks like fall leaves, and a lot of people connect Raphael with fall. So that's just something I wanted to mention that I thought was interesting.
Yeah, I noticed that there seemed to be some green, and that's an unusual color for flame. So it must be, I'm sort of seeing the leaves as well.
And here's the crown of the King of Wands, which is only little single leaves or single flames, not as glorious as of the angel Raphael there.
And I think that the sources that I've read identifies the archangel there as Raphael.
Okay, thank you. What are those? Are they snakes or leaves? What are they?
No, there are green in it. These are the color that the builder of the Audition painted it with.
Did you do those color? Did you color the cards?
No.
Because that's the BOTA thing, right?
Yes, it is, but it is colored.
And part of the reason why it's considered to be Raphael is that Raphael is the angel of love and healing.
I thought it was the hair.
I have this Eden Gray book, and it says Raphael, the angel of air, personifying the superconscious, pouring down the cosmic benediction on the two figures below.
Yeah, the Eden Gray, several, I guess she has several books. Those to take me back to the beginning of learning tarot, because those were kind of the textbooks we were passing around the Gnostic Society under Dr. Heller. Shall we set the stage for the Chariot? The riot that takes place in a chair.
You couldn't resist it. I like that one.
When can I? Never.
A punsta, baby, a punsta.
You ask me for a pun, I say, upon what subject?
Oh, it's getting better.
That's a pun on a pun.
Mm-hmm. And what pun it is. Ha ha ha.
So now we will enjoy Dr. Heller on the seventh arcanum on the Chariot.
The side paths are always a little bit tricky. Why? Because they don't touch the middle. They are not in touch with the center of balance, so they're off to the side. And it requires a strength of soul to travel such a path. Because if you yourself are not very well balanced, and you are on a path that is, in a sense, off balance because on the side, then there is too much off balance, and things can happen that are not so fortunate, not so good. And now we'll look on the right-hand pillar, again from the point of view of the tree, connecting Gevurah to Bina. Now, you are connecting two very powerful but also somewhat hazardous Sephirot, because Gevurah, the red Sephirah down there with Mars as its attributions, is very, very powerful. And the Kabbalistic principle is that the tree of life is a structure, it's an energy system. It's not a system of morality, which means that the only thing that is bad that is evil, as I mentioned before, is unbalanced force. Unbalanced force is evil. But everything else in the tree of life just is, like in nature, you know. But there are energies, there are powers in the tree of life that when encountered under the wrong circumstances can be very destructive. And that is true of Gevurah. And so we have a very highly energized path here, which however at the same time is a little bit tricky. Connecting Gevurah to Bina, that's the 18th path, with the 7th arcanum, which is called the Chariot. The Chariot. The letter is Ket, meaning offense, and the astrological sign is Cancer. Now, this is a path of extreme power. The picture is that of a war chariot, old war chariot from sort of classical times. And in the chariot stands a warrior king with a canopy overhead holding a scepter. The chariot is coming out of a walled city and is out in the open. And in this particular deck, two sphinxes, a white and a black sphinx, sort of indicating the polarities of power, are pulling the chariot. You have a severe, rigorous, very powerful keynote to this, a warlike keynote, which at the same time, again, if properly understood and used, can be very beneficial. It has a great deal to do with the right attitude toward power, the right use of power, and how to use, you might say, power and energy, how to affinitize yourself to it, and thereby get to good places in your spiritual development. Once again, I have vowed to stay away from personal comments, but it's a vow that I am breaking all the time, so I'll break it again. This card had an extremely powerful prophetic impact once in my life. And I will not go into the details, but let's say the card came to me, and it was a very important, very critical point in my life, and the card in effect said to me, I am coming. Are you prepared for me? Because if you get aboard when I am coming, I'm going to take you to some wonderful places. And life is never going to be the same again. But if you stand on the side and hesitate, then I'm going to bypass you and you're going to stay there on the road, buddy, for God knows how many years. And if you stand in my way, I'll run you down and I'll break you to pieces. So out of those three possibilities, there was really only one that was a useful choice. And I succeeded in doing that. And I tell you, that chariot really took off, and it ran for several years, and it took me from one wonderful thing to another. In a way, it hasn't stopped since, and this was quite a few decades ago. So that's just one way that the chariot can work, but it definitely has to do with movement, has to do with energy. And once again, when you become affinitized to the keynote of a card like this, then you can apply it in various situations, divinatory situations and so forth. You know, very much like a message from the chariot itself. Very knightly, sort of very powerful, martial kind of a keynote.
Always super useful to hear Dr. Heller furiously taking notes. When the chariot comes up for me in a reading, things are underway. Things are rolling, or it's time to get rolling. Things are moving. You better move along with it. It's similar to what he said. It's you can kind of lead, follow, or get out of the way. that old saying that they talk about. And so you are underway on your own personal journey. And if coming up in the summary position in a reading would affirm that things are really moving, and it's important that you get on board and that you recognize the dynamism in the situation. If this were in the no position, the advice avoid position, then I would say, hold on, take a breath, make sure that you're not like rolling too far in the other way, because it really could take you in a wrong direction, or it could, with Mars as the keynote, you could be spoiling for a fight, you could be engaging some energies that it's really hard to roll back from. So once you move forward, it's kind of like you run everything over and you leave a path of destruction that you can't easily come back from. I'm riffing right now. That wouldn't be every reading, but it's what's coming to me now. And then if this were an advice in the favorable, then I think that it's definitely time to get rolling. It's a good time to make a move. If you were in a business or a project, then I think that it's really time to make some strides and take this to wherever it needs to go, which would be supported by the other cards around it, and with some time and questions and things like that. Magnus, do you want to keep it going?
Yes, thank you, Alison. This in a reading, I have a picture of this in the handle tarot, which is a ship in storm that is also a scene where an artist is standing in the storm. And when I get this in a reading and read, I have always said, if it is in a positive position, that you should go up on the stage, everybody should see you, it's time for you now to develop. And if the question is if there is profitable to change something or go on a journey or something in a positive position, the answer is yes. And looking at it more in the symbolic way, it's the white and the black vibrations there that drawing the chariot butt. As also Yeriel know, after has reading the Kabbalistic tarot, there is also a great writing about it, that the chariot actually stands still. It is stability in it. It doesn't move. And also it hasn't come from the castle in the background, because it's water behind it. So there is a symbology in that. And there is also a secret in this card. There's several secrets in it. But looking at it numerologically, you have to split the 7 in a 3 and a 4, because there is a 3 and a 4 hidden in this card. And you see the 3, the 4 you see on the square on the figure, but the 3 you don't see, but it is there. So it's a pyramid in this card. It's the 3 out of the 4, or the other way around. Yeriel know this, I don't know it. It's an interesting card, and I think also it's difficult to read, actually, I think, because it is a bit enigmatic. And also looking at the path again, this path is mirroring the path of the Hierophant that we had the last time. And it's an outer path of the tree. So it's something there also in the balance. And they are balanced by the high priestess, and also the lovers and the emperor. So there is a symbology there also, a deeper symbology. But it's a card that is full of symbology. I like to look at this card for some time and think, and I always get something new thoughts about it. There is also 2 moons there. That is the balance between the Sephira, Gebura, and Hesed. And there is a lot more going on there. There are black also, so there's a lot of Saturn there also. I think I passed this to Yeriel. Thank you.
Got to get unmuted. Yeah, this is, as you say, a very, very enigmatic card, and just, incredibly chocked full of symbols. I mentioned earlier when the Two of Cups came up, and this this card relates very much to the Two of Cups, and I think that again the symbol at the beginning with the winged disc, and below it the shield with the thing on there that looks like a top. That is not a top. That is actually an old symbol that represents the lingam and yoni joined. So it has to do with again with sexuality. And if you look at the Two of Cups, it has a different form of that winged disc. The lion's head in the middle is the disc, and there are the wings. And then down below, you have the male and the female joining hands, like that symbol. Another parallel is with, I think, the star card, and looking at his crown. It has that 8-pointed star, which I think is supposed to be the star of hope, and then it has the 7 stars, which are divided into that 4 and 3 that Magnus was just referring to. And we see that the what would you call that, the all those stars that are on the curtain that is surrounding him. This is also related often back to the Emperor card, and this doesn't look really a lot like a chariot. It's really too blocky. Chariots don't have roofs on them. They have horses rather than sphinxes. Actually, some of the older cards did actually have horses. Another name for this card has been triumph, and that relates back to Roman times when the victor in battle would be given a triumph, a big parade through the city, and the victorious general would be riding in a chariot. Here, instead of the horses, though, we have these 2 sphinxes, which bring to mind mystery, and the whole legendary stuff about sphinxes in Egyptian mythology. And we have again the black and the white, which reminds me a lot of the 2 pillars in the priestess card. And again, we have that triangle with the 2 figures below a dominating central figure, and the powers that this figure has, and he's supposed to be like the victorious person in his triumph. And you see that he's holding the wand of the magician, but he's not holding it up to the sky like the magician is, which shows that his mastery is of the lower world, the physical world. And he also doesn't have reins going to what's pulling his chariot. He just has the empty left hand, which is positioned like it would be holding reins, but there are no reins there. I think it's also interesting that you see this city behind him, and then there's a green landscape and a river, and he's in front of it, and he appears to have crossed that river. He's made his decision back at the lover's card, and now he's moving forward with it. And I think that that's the main divinatory symbolism here, is that how are you going to carry forth on a decision that you have made? Are you going to ride triumphant to success through your decision, or not? But he has left behind the walled city in the back, and he's venturing forth into whatever new change has come about. And with that idea of change, we get to the relationship again now with the card 16, which is the tower, which represents change. And the numerical, the 16 reduces to 7. And so that's a connection as well. And what else was I noticing in this? Again, we're seeing here another representation of equilibrium. And as I've talked about in discussing prior cards and Masonic symbolism, the ultimate message in symbol after symbol after symbol in Freemasonry is the need to find the equilibrium to balance the good and the bad toward a middle path. And one other thing that really kind of reminds me of whether it was intended as a Masonic symbol or not, I think that the lower part of his outfit looks very much like an apron, and it's filled with geometric symbols. And of course, the G that you see within the square and compass stands in English speaking and in Germany, it stands for God, because that's the first initial of the word God. But more universally, it stands for geometry. And geometry is the science by which you see God's handiwork. It describes the physical world. Also, that square on the chest is a symbol of the physical world, the four corners of the world, and so on. That symbol and much more elaborate versions of it you find on the chest plates that were worn by the ancient Hebrew priests, and that symbol and that priest symbol, it also shows up in some of the higher degrees of Scottish Rite Masonry. And let me pass.
Let me pass
ahead.
it to Lana, because she's has to
That-
leave us
That
shortly.
was just who I was going to pass it on to, Brian. So you're on, Lana.
Thank you. I think you just gave such an incredible, description of this card. I really don't have that much to add. I think the only thing that I want to point it out, that there is a difference, in symbolism of horses and sphinxes, because we know, it's the horses, it's the animal nature of, us, but the sphinxes, we don't really know who they are. They're, ever mysterious creatures. So only I could say that sometimes, we make decisions and we don't know where they're coming from, or why we're making them. they're just instinctual, and then we have to suffer the circumstances. And the one thing that I just want to add before I leave, it's very interesting how the recent reading that you guys, Magnus gave me, and I had all these 3 cards there. I had the final card, which was the Two of Cups, and the recommendation was a Chariot, and the card of the future was a Tower. So I have a lot to digest from today's session. Thank you, and I'll pass this to Christina. And I'll see you all on Wednesday.
Okay. Thanks,
See you
Lana.
then.
I don't have too much to say, just a couple of things. Just the balance, the importance of balance, that when you're riding a chariot, I see it as a chariot, that when you have to balance the two, when you're holding the reins, when you're dealing with 2 dogs or 2 horses or 2 sphinxes, you still have to balance the power of the two. And I think that's important to look at in divination. I always pick this up as excitement, as triumph, as okay, you won. However, don't let it get to your head. You have to balance it. You have to balance the power. And even if it's the Sphinx are interpreted as bad or good, bad has power, and you have to balance that too. Good has power. Both are important, and both are part of us. So just the emphasis of balancing the power. And Alice, I pronounce it, I don't mean to pronounce it Allison. I meant to pronounce Alice. Am I pronouncing it correctly, Alice?
You're talking about me? This is Allah.
Allah. Okay, sorry, Allah. That's who I meant first time I sent it. Okay. You want to go next?
Well, thank you, Christina. Well, I really don't have anything to add. This just card, the way I see this is a card of the winner and the balance. So apparently, whatever his goal was, he was able to accomplish the way I see it. And it's a fascinating card. There's like so many things to look at. And I'm fascinated by these 2 moons that signifies to me intuition. So he, the character really relies on his connection to his higher self and his intuition. So that's it. And his hands are also, his hands are also, looks like, well, he has something in his right hand, but they're open. So he doesn't have, it's like he's open to the world. So that way I see it. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you. Just a couple things that I've read that kind of strike me with this card. It's very interesting how he's the charioteer, the person driving the chariot is coming out of that cube. I've read that.
Oh yeah.
That charioteer, that person kind of can represent logos. So it's like mind over the cube being matter. So mind over matter. This being the 7th card, the end of the septenary, excuse me, I can't pronounce that correctly. But the end of the 7 cards, this is the end of a cycle. And I've always interpreted it as sort of like, not you maybe ending the cycle, but whatever that supreme being ending that cycle and moving on to that next. And this is very clearly a godlike figure, with the stars being the firmament above him and the 4 pillars being kind of the 4 corners of the earth. And I really like the imagery of the solar disk in the kind of on that cube, and how that relates to, just that supremacy, like I was just talking about. But yeah, tons of imagery in this card, and kind of beautiful. One thing, Jeriel, though, I noticed that star is not the 8-pointed star of the blazing star. It looks like it's 7-pointed, which kind of, because it is the 7th arcanum, I think. But I'm not sure if the seventh prong star has any specific meaning. I'm not sure
It
if you.
looks like 6 to me.
No, if you count it, it's eight. It's the 8-pointed star.
On the
Oh, you know what? Yeah.
where?
I
on the
I wasn't careful enough. My apologies on that. But
on the canopy, I'm seeing 6.
on the canopy it is. Well, it depends. I think the one on the top left has 8.
Yes, you're right.
Depends. I think it really depends. But yeah, it is very interesting that the Sphinx aren't also attached to the Chariot. Even though, do we really have the reins of those, or is that something that's more fate driven? But do we, like I was mentioning earlier, do we have to take our mind over that matter in order to drive the Chariot in the right direction? But yeah, great card. Let's go with Elizabeth.
I've always felt that the Chariot is an indication that things are moving forward. If there was a space and in some kind of a question of something happening, it may not feel like it's happened yet, or there's energy that's going to indicate it's coming or it's moving forward, and things that maybe the question was hopeful for, even if it's not in their grasp, it's maybe a card of more hopefulness of things moving forward. But I also see the balance of dark and light and good and evil, and balance in your process of waiting. I'm also sort of trying to see what's on his apron, if I'm noticing astrology glyphs or if it's elemental signs. But the first one looks a little like Libra, and then I thought I saw like the air element in there. But I don't know if there's any real translation about what is drawn on his apron. That's kind of fascinating to me today. And then what is on the armor? So under the solar sun disk and the wings, there's an armor with, looks like a nut with some kind of washer, something is in process of being created, is what that maybe indicates, a creation yet to happen, or a creation that's moving forward, or a triumph in the process of something that is in the works. And that's all for the Chariot. I guess I would pass it back to Allison.
Thank you. And then we'll go to Brian. I'm going to pose 2 questions for folks out there. 2 elements that I haven't noticed before. One that I've noticed, one that I haven't, and just noticed it today, and wondering what your thinking is. Both of the Sphinxes have breasts. So that's unusual to me. So I don't know that that's part of the Egyptian Sphinx. So that's something. And then if you look at his shoulders above the crescent moons, do you see profiles?
Yeah, I just noticed that too.
I never noticed that until today. So that is an interesting design element.
Doesn't it look like one is smiling and one is not smiling?
Oh, well, that's interesting. That's kind of like the Janus masks as well, right? The comedy and tragedy and the 2 aspects of humanity. That's interesting. Brian, you haven't had a turn to do your impressions yet, so I just wanted to throw that out. Maybe you have some insights.
Well, I very much enjoyed what Elizabeth said, because when it comes to readings, this really is a very productive card. It's extremely useful in readings, because I don't know, it's always so very relevant, whether it be, well, there's going to be a great deal of energy available soon, or any of the variations of opportunity, and perhaps the hazard of not taking the opportunities. But just divination wise, it is a very, very useful card. And so did everybody get a chance to go, or shall we just hand it around?
I think it's the free for all now.
There is something interesting with that winged disc, because if you are thinking of the Harry Potter, the Quicken game piece is that winged disc, if you are looking at the films in the Quidditch game. And that piece is very difficult to catch. So there is a symbology there hidden in the film.
I wonder if J.K. Rowling had that in mind at all.
I think so.
It's certainly an opportunity that needs to be caught when that's the advice. Does anybody know what on that shield below the winged sun disk? What is that symbol there? The red symbol?
That's the lingam and the yoni joined.
So the masculine and feminine sexual principles.
Correct.
The penis and the vagina, to be quite literal.
Yes.
Very literally presented there, yeah. And
I think that its position in this card indicates that the triumphant charioteer has control over those. He's no longer torn by that dichotomy that we discussed in the lover card, while the decision is up in the air.
The integration of the two principles, the masculine and the feminine, then represented as it moves forward.
I wanted to add, Georgia always refers to what we see, the wings and the disc in the middle, as the ajna. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. And this is the area that we make the highest decision, where all our decisions are made without our best decisions are made, is it through the ajna.
Where is that represented, Christina? Is that the
with the wings and the disc?
The third eye. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
In the nap. Oh, go ahead, Matt.
Yes, go on, Michael. No, go.
In the nap hall, instead of just being the wings and the solar disk, they actually put the Egyptian solar disk. And if you don't mind, let me read this from this book. It's the relationship between that and the Tetragrammaton, Yahweh. The central globe represents the essence of God, inaccessible and hidden. The X, which isn't on this one, image of the denary system, indicates the Yod. The two serpents emerging from the bottom of the globe, this is in the Egyptian solar disk, are the two He, and lastly, the two wings symbolize the spirit, the Va. So, the Greeks also thought that, the sun was a chariot going through the heavens. And so, having that connected with this card, I think is interesting. And I'm not an Egyptologist by any means, Allison, but I did Google search a little bit, and it seems like female breasts are common on sphinxes.
Oh, thank you.
And a lot of Egyptian mythology. But yeah, that's what I'd say. Sorry, Magnus, go ahead.
No problem. It looks like the white sphinx is holding something between his hands, or his. There is something round there, I think. It looks like that if you are looking at it.
Is that the tip of his tail that's going around there and under his?
Oh, it could.
right,
Yes, it is. Oh,
leg?
thank you, Ariel. Yes, it is. It is. And the black one may also hold it. Yes, yes, it could be. And then I think the belt he has around him, if that is the pentagrammaton, the one with the shin letter in, the Yod Hey Vav He with the chin in the middle. It could be that, but I don't know.
The esoteric titles of this card are The Child of the Powers of the Waters and The Lord of the Triumph of Light.
Another interesting thing I just wanted to point out, you know, 7 is Netsack, which is victory, and obviously a chariot. You know, we're taking that, you know, Mars energy and maybe with a little bit more discipline and kind of moving on to victory, I think is pretty interesting. Yeah.
And hermetically, it's the gender principle.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that's very evident with the Sphinxes.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, that dark and light.
Yes.
This is
right there.
this is also the final card in that first septenary, and I was just noticing when Brian was queuing this up that the cards are arranged in that septenary. It's 7, 7, 7, and I also think that if you look at the card, there are echoes of symbolism from the first 6 in that septenary. He's got the wand that's in the magician card 1. He's got the echo of the pillars from the high priestess, which is number 2. He's got that crown with starry crown that mirrors the Empress's crown in card 3. He's on that square stone block, which really looks a lot like the Emperor's throne in card 4, and he's in a position above the Sphinxes, like the Hierophant is above the acolytes. And we already discussed a number of the symbolic comparisons with the number 6 card. So I think he's kind of a summary card of that first septenary of the majors.
The septenary is there.
And as I talked about back in one of our previous ones, I read from Dr. Heller's book, The Fool's Pilgrimage, about the significance of those 3 different septenaries, and had suggested that there might be some value in laying the cards out like that and then looking down at each of the 7 threes. I'm still playing with that myself.
In this case, for this one, it's there, the Chariot, and then it's the Temperance, and then it's the World.
That is an interesting contemplation and meditation to look at those pathways down, and that's
Yeah.
Yes.
Neat.
Oh, where's that from, Magnus?
That's a book that's called The Spoken Kabbalah. It's a book that was it's published by the Fraternity of the Hidden Light.
The spoken.
It's actually good, but it's not about the septionary. It is about each of the cards. It's a series of lectures that was held in San Francisco in the 17th by a man that was his name was Jason C. Lotterhard. He's gone now. It's actually good. It's still in print, I believe. I can add it to the list.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yes, and it uses the Bota Tarot in the symbology, so it's explaining the Bota Tarot, the cards there.
$21 on Amazon.
Yes.
And by the way, the reason I haven't put my book list into that Dropbox thing is when I tried to do that today or a couple days ago, and I haven't figured it out yet. They have, every time they update my computer, they throw me off because everything is laid out differently, and I can see all the things in the Dropbox, but I haven't been able to get one of them to let me into any of the folders on my Dropbox. So hopefully by the time we meet again, I will have figured that out and put my book list in there.
Thank
But
you. I
really
noticed with a
appreciate what
couple
you've
of
done
people.
for us, Allison, with that.
Oh, not at all. For a couple of people, the way they access Google is from a different email than the one they may be using that I may have sent you. So the email that you put in the chat might be the different one than is your Google identity. And then that will ask you to ask me for editing privileges. And I've done that for a couple people. So that might be part of it. So anyway, if it's a problematic thing, if you want to just put it into a little document or something, shoot it to me and I'll throw it in there.
Okay, well, I am also now not being able to get into my Research Lodge
Oh, how
Dropbox
frustrating.
either.
Okay, so that's you then.
It's me. I was trying to go in just through the Dropbox symbol, and I really wish they would quit constantly updating things and changing the format of it. I don't know why that keeps doing. I guess there's somebody, that's his job and he has to keep doing something. But I find it more of a nuisance than a help.
It's the same thing with like refrigerators and planned obsolescence, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's to fill the memory, so you have to buy a new computer because it gets filled.
Although I don't really want to do this because you guys have given me so many good book recommendations. I've probably spent like hundreds of dollars in books over the past couple.
Oh, I know. But we opened up a Google Doc, Michael, and I haven't sent you the invitation.
Yeah, no, I would love.
So put your email in the chat, and I will send you the invite to the Google Doc, and you can make recommendations to your heart's content and see all our other things. At this point, we've already planned a trip to, or I have anyway, planned a trip to Southeast England and maybe a little foray into Italy for there's a tarot park that Magnus told us about. So we've got